Guess what? It's Saturday morning and it's 9 o'clock. Yes, it's time for the Monster Magic Saturday Show. Let's do this.
Wake up, it's a beautiful morning. Feel the sun shining for your eyes.
Woohoo! Good morning. Gosh, a week has flown by, but what a scorcher of a week. Fingers crossed it holds out for the rest of the weekend, and that means you can all get out in the garden and paint the fence and dig up those weeds. But before you do that, sit back, have a cup of tea, have a bacon sandwich and watch a Monster Magic review show. And first up I have The Approach by Jamie D. Grant. Yes, I'm kicking off the show with a book. You can skip through this bit, but I normally stick the books at the end because people tend to stay clear of them. But this is a book unlike any other. It was one of the first books that came out that was really about practical advice for becoming a magician, from transitioning perhaps from a hobbyist to a professional or a semi-professional, maybe trying to earn some money and try and do some paid gigs. This was really, for me, one of the first books that did that. It is a workbook. It is essays. It came out in 2013, written by Jamie D. Grant, who's a Canadian magician, and it's full of advice. It's 102 chapters, I think, and they take you really from what to expect when you do your gig, what sort of things you need to know. And they are basically, you've got tips, essays, articles, anecdotes, advice, all of that sort of thing to help you, whether it's about building your set, whether you have 3 tricks and a middle one and a closer and an opener, to help with sponge balls and rubber bands, to how to mingle, to how to introduce yourself, all of the practical stuff that you would encounter at a gig. But it also gives you some little work bits as well. There's one chapter which is like 10 tricks you can do with an ordinary deck of cards, which is a really useful thing to write down, something you can struggle with as well. So there are workbooks bits here, so there are bits that you can fill in. Obviously this is mine back from 2013 when it came out. I obviously wrote my things down on a piece of paper. I would never write inside a book, sacrilege. But you've got things like getting ready for your first gig there, conquering nerves. What was that just oh, this is this is something I do with books that I read, actually. So when I read them for bookmark, I have a ticket or anything that says where or when I was when I was reading the book. And there you go. So the Vatican was where I was when I was reading this book in 2013, I guess. Letting spectators shuffle, lots and lots, being funny or serious, but also things about how to practice as well. He has a thing like Magic Mondays where he just does one trick to everybody he meets on a Monday to really sort of nail that trick. It is full of great advice, and especially it's unlike any books. It's not full of tricks. I think he talked about the crosscut force a little bit, but that's about it. There's not full of tricks. It's not full of heavy theory. It's written in a very chatty style, a bit like your mate, you know, a more experienced mate or a mentor giving you some good advice, and you can just work your way through it. It's great. It is really good. What to do if you drop cards, all of the stuff is covered. And so if you are thinking of perhaps, I mean, yeah, just doing the odd gig, just trying to make some money, or maybe your friends keep asking you to do their birthdays and things like that. It's just how to get better, how to prepare for the practical, honest advice. It's a terrific book. It really is. How, you know, it's got things like how much to charge. That's possibly a little bit out of date now. I mean, there's just so much. I literally devoured this book, so it really helped me, and I think it will really help anyone else, and it'll build your confidence as well. It'll make you feel that you can actually do this, and if you follow any of the advice, if you work through any of his little workbook sections, you will become better and you'll feel more confident when you do that first gig. It used to be really expensive, actually. I think it was possibly over £50 when I bought it, but now it's not. Now it is much cheaper, but the contents are still just as good. That is The Approach by Jamie D. Grant, $38.99. And next up, it's Boom Deck by Wonder Makers. This is probably the big trick of the week, the big trick of the show. If you don't know what the effect is, basically you have a card chosen and signed and put back in the deck. You then put the deck down on the table. You have your spectator form a gun with their fingers. They squeeze the trigger and the deck explodes and the top cards flip over to reveal their signed selection. It is one of those moments in Magic, a bit like Leviosa, only louder and brighter, which really does shock as well as amuse and amaze your participants. It's got flash, it's got a little bit of noise, and it's got these cards flying and turning over. It's a great reveal, and that's what it is really. It is a reveal of a signed card. It's not a massive long-fledged routine by any stretch of the imagination. It is easy to do, certainly that trick, and they do teach a routine with a coin as well, so you can have a sort of you could put the coin, have a coin signed. They teach it with a coin signed. That's a bit iffy. They don't teach it very well, but you can do it with an unsigned coin. Just vanish a coin, put a glass over the top of the deck, and have the coin appear inside the glass. But since it's a deck of cards, it makes a lot of sense to use the card trick. Pretty easy to do. You will want to do some normal card tricks first of all with a regular deck of cards. Make sure they've been shuffled and everything else, and then just switch in the Boom Deck. The Boom Deck is easy enough to switch in. You can do it when you can do the old back turned ruse, or you can do it when you're having your cards signed and you're taking the pen out, and there are plenty of moments to do the switch. And putting the card back in the deck is also very easy because of the construction of the Boom Deck and the gimmick. It's very easy to slot it into the right place. It's sort of like a tilt type move, but you've got much more cover, there's more cards on top, so it's easier to do even than Marlowe's tilt. But let me show you what you get. That's really what you want to see, isn't it? So in this box, if I can squeeze it out, don't think I'll get rid of the tutorial card. Here's what you receive. So you've got your charging cable. That is your remote control. There were some people talking about the size of the remote control. I think they were worried about it. It's just one button. You can squeeze it through. If you have this in your pocket, you can squeeze it through your trousers if you want, or you can just pick it up. It's easy enough to have in your hand if that's the way you want to do it. It's up to you how you want to do it. Just have it in your back pocket, just press it. All of the focus really when you're pressing this should be on the spectator and the deck of cards. You want to build up some tension here. They don't know what's going to happen. They would like to think this is what's going to happen, and when it does, it's great. And then this is the gimmick in here. Get it out. These are your two cover cards. They are special. These will get worn out. You can get refills for these cards, but you get a red one and a blue one, depending on what kind of deck you want to use, obviously. Please remember to use the blue one if you're using a blue deck, and so on. These will get worn out. They will get dirty eventually, but you're probably talking about 40 or 50 goes before you're going to want to replace these. So actually, you've got almost 100 performances here with just these two cards if you're willing to use a blue deck at any point, which I know a lot of people don't like doing. And this really is the gimmick. It's very simple. It is 3D printed by the looks of it, but very well. And I think that's a nice disguise as a deck of cards. So even though it's 3D printed, you will have some extra cards on top here as well. So it will be the same thickness as a deck of cards, but it looks pretty good. You put a card on the bottom as well as a cover card too. So the tutorial is only about half an hour long. It's mainly talking hands. English isn't their first language, so it is dubbed, but it's very, very clear. And a lot of it really is about setting it up. Do watch the tutorial before you start kicking this stuff off. Setting it up is simple, slightly arts and crafty, but you do get absolutely everything you need in the box, and you do want to watch it. You want to get it right first time. Lots of useful tips in there, and then he spends quite a lot of time talking about how much wool, the flash wool, you put inside here to have it go off consistently and so on. Pay attention to that as well. You don't want too much, believe me. They then talk you through both routines, the coin and the card routine. There's no real demonstration of those routines, so you just have to listen to what he says and use your imagination a little bit. But once you've got this in your hands, you'll be practicing it, and you can see the performances on the trailer, so you'll get a sense of what should be happening when, but it's not really covered that much on the tutorial. The tutorial, as far as the mechanics of the tricks are concerned, and the sleights used and anything like that, any tips, performance tips, it's really devoid of any of that. And then finally they have the care and the cleaning of the gimmick, basically some alcohol and some cotton wool buds. They could have some more close-ups on that actually, so you can see exactly what he's doing, but it is pretty obvious. It's a super little thing. Like I say, it's 3D printed, but it is pretty solid and robust. I wouldn't go dropping it, but I reckon it will stand up to the odd prang. And there's very little working parts. There's very little to go wrong. Just make sure you charge it up properly in using the right cables and so on, and you should be absolutely fine. And be careful when cleaning it about the wires. You don't want to bend them or move them out of place. Apart from the skimpy nature of details on the routines, or really any other sort of ideas for it, it is a great, wonderful little item, but it isn't cheap. So make sure that you really want that moment in your magic routines. It is the Boom Deck by Wonder Makers, $94.99. And now we've got Colt 52 by Secret Tannery and Steve Thompson. This is this intrigues me really. There's a lot of deck holders out there. This is a deck holster to carry around your deck of cards in if you're not happy with your pockets. Secret Tannery do make some really nice leather wallets, peak wallets, Carter wallets. They're really nice, really well made. And this is Gerard of Secret Tannery teaming up with Steve Thompson to come up with a deck holster. And this one surprised me. Its design is very unique. Here we go. This is where your deck is, and I'll put the deck in. Let's put the deck back in here, and it's designed at an angle, and this is a magnetic section here, and you've got your two magnets that hold it in place nice and firmly. And this design, not only does it is a nice place to hold out your deck of cards if you're not using your pocket, but you can also do a neat little deck switch with it. It will hold your Omni decks and things like that as well. But that is all it is basically. It's not leather, it is vegan leather, so not leather. I'm not sure if it's vegan leather made from a plant-based material or a PVC based material, and one of which is obviously much nicer for the planet than the other one. And this is a carbon fiber effect, so that's not carbon fiber either, but it does look pretty slick. Something very sexy about carbon fiber. I don't know what it is. So it's a non-leather, non-carbon fiber looking thing, and this literally just slips here. You can put this inside your trousers or inside between your belt and your trousers if you like. If you do it between your belt and your trousers, then obviously you're limited by the belt loop as to where it can be. If you have it inside your trousers, the magnets don't quite close up if it's inside your trousers, but you know, your friction is absolutely fine to keep it in place, and you can have it either around your back or down by your side. And the angle is really handy for removing the deck of cards, which is why it's quite handy for a deck switch, and it is very slick. Gerard does run through how to do the deck switch in the tutorial. He performs it a couple of times and then he teaches it. It's part of his ambitious card routine, so he's got built-in misdirection and an offbeat with which to perform it, which is really what you're looking for with any deck switch. My initial thing was I was concerned really that it didn't have any closure on it, and it was really just a holster, not for the hobbyist to carry his deck around when he doesn't want to, you know, ruin his beautiful silhouette when he's out for a night, or rather for a professional going to a gig who wants to do something like a deck switch or just have his deck around. So whether or not it was fine for your daily use and you work down the pub, my really big concern was sort of this big sort of size of it and the fact that it was open. But actually the deck of cards really doesn't come out at all. Obviously you can put loose cards in here, which would be slightly more dangerous, but you have to really shake it to get it out. So it doesn't need a top on it at all. And when you're sitting down, this can flap up, so it's not too uncomfortable. They won't fall out. Your deck is secure if you are just going out for a boogie whilst doing some magic on the side for your mates. But I found this a little bit dug into me. I found this a little bit big when I was sitting down, so I found it a little bit uncomfortable sitting down. But if you're standing up, walking around, it is perfect. It is really, really well made. The stitching's beautiful. This bit's all solid. It is a lovely, lovely piece of craftsmanship. And I've found that this angle is just perfect for reaching and grabbing the deck of cards. Colt 52 is a good name for it because it is almost like your quick draw macaw. The one thing probably to highlight though is that it sits on the left hand side of your body or the middle of your back. You're going to be getting this with your left hand. If you have it on the right hand side of your body, the deck is facing backwards, so you have to pull it out with your right hand side. Not impossible. I don't know why I'm making a gun movement, but it's not impossible to pull it out in that way, but it's obviously designed to be on the left rather than the right, especially with the deck switch. You don't want to be going back. Deck switch is nice to come out from your left hand side. I'm not sure if it is genuinely the ultimate. There are just a couple of tweaks I might make to it, but I think the design is really clever, off the wall, yet practical. It's much easier to take on and off. It's very quick to remove it, much quicker than any sort of clippy based holders, and the removal of the deck is super. It is very, very good indeed. And that is Colt 52 by Secret Tannery. Just $34.99. And finally, we've got Gripstick by Penguin Magic. This is basically a roughing stick. If you don't know what a roughing stick is, it's a waxed based block. Let me show you. There you go. Oh, this is a big serious block. Usually wax based, and what happens is you apply this to the back or the front of playing cards, and they will stick or adhere to another playing card. It's basically a way of rough and smoothing your cards. There are other methods, but the roughing stick is the easiest, most accurate, and probably the most user friendly, as the sprays do tend to damage your lungs. You've got to sort of do them outside or in a well ventilated area, and then you've got to wait for them to dry. This is much quicker to use a stick, and also what is very good with a stick is that you can accurately do just parts of a playing card. So there are plenty of books out there. Rough and Smooth Possibilities by Hock Tang Xuan is one that I would really highly recommend, and he's got lots of patterns in that book on how to rough cards, whether you just rough one side of the card, just the top, just the bottom, and the different effects that you can do with it. But you can use these to make your invisible decks, your brainwave decks, your mirage decks, your pop-eyed popper decks, or any other ideas that you have. And the tutorial is by Eric Tate. He runs through making all of those popular decks, plus adding a couple of effects of his own that he's come up with. And then finally you have Craig Petty. Check shirts and tattoos and everything he says.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
And he has let Penguin include an extract from his Penguin Live lecture where he does a cards across, where your participant has his hands on a pile of 10 cards, 3 cards put into the deck face up. The deck's closed, then respread. Those cards have vanished and they are now inside the pile that your participant has had his hands on the entire time. Very simple, self-working, a brilliant use of the rough and smooth principle and this stick. The Penguin make a big deal about this being some special formula that they have been trying out for years and years, and that might well be true. You can see where they've poured it. It's got a little indent, and it sort of feels much more like a surfboard based wax rather than my roughing stick or the Harry Robson stick that feels more like a beeswax. I'm not sure what surfboard wax is. It might be beeswax based as well, but let me just try and demonstrate what you do. Now, before using this, you do want to get it well up to room temperature, slightly above. Eric talks about just sticking it in your pocket for half an hour just to soften it up a little bit. That does help. I was a bit surprised at how light this is. You have to press pretty hard to get this on to the card, much harder than other roughing sticks that I've come across. And it's quite a light. So it comes in 2 strengths. This is the regular, and that is that roughed on there, and you'll see that does sort of stick. So if that's all you've got to do, then you can show 3 cards or 2 cards, and these are stuck, but it's very light. I have to press a lot harder. It's quite flimsy, so I have to press, which card did I do? Let's press a bit more. The alternative, of course, is there you go. So you can sort of separate them, show 3, push them apart, you've got 2, but that's better. You might be better off with this stick roughing both cards that you want to stick together. That's much firmer now. Yeah, much firmer. So you do have to press quite hard. You have to put quite a lot on, but it does give a nice light coat. You can feel it, but of course you can, because it has to be roughed a little bit. But it's quite nice, and you get this block will last you a long time. I haven't tried the extra strong, but if I just demonstrate with the Easy Rough from Monster. So this is the Easy Rough block. You get a bit less, to be fair. It is half the price. But if I just rough the Queen, I just rough the Queen quickly in the middle. All you do, just take it, run it across, like so. That is now quite a nice firm hold, which is easy to separate, but also easy to stick together. So that might be more what the extra strong version is, and it's really, really good fun playing with these. So where's 2 red cards? And roughing sticks are really good fun to play with. You will come up with some own effects. You can also make effects a lot easier. I often cheat a little bit with my Chicago opener. So for example, if I was going to have the 9 of hearts, I sometimes have the red, the odd backed card that's going to be in my Chicago opener. I often have that with just a little bit of wax on. And that means you can actually do one of the cleanest double lifts in the world, show it off and then put it down. Very, very useful, but also for having cards vanish between 2 red cards. So if you rough the back, you can put the different card in the middle. So close them up and then it vanishes. Very nice, lots and lots of fun. Eric's tutorial is very, very clear. Certainly you're going to be making one of the classic decks, like a Mirage deck, for example. He talks a little bit about patterning, about just doing 1/2 of the card to make cards easier to separate and to push over, but he doesn't really go way out there with all of the sort of different vanishes, the packet tricks, other routines, plots and presentations. Craig's petty routine is really, really good and really, really brilliant. You will need a couple of decks of cards to do that with, and one of these sticks. It is a fair old chunk. This will last you a long time. It does work. Personally, I would go with the extra strong. I think it is just going to be quicker to apply for the amount of strength that you genuinely need. It is possibly a little overpriced, but it is a lifetime's supply. That is Gripstick by Penguin Magic, 18.99. And just for completeness, if you are going to rough an entire deck of cards, you may not want to go through all of the trouble of doing each individual card. You can use roughing spray. This, I get asked about a lot about this because Testers was the most popular thing in the market. Testers is a very small can, very expensive. Magic shops used to sell it for a lot of money. This is what you need if you want to rough your cards with a spray. It is Rust-Oleum Clear Coat Matte Finish. Do go for the clear, otherwise you'll be painting your cards, and do go for the matte, otherwise you'll be making them shiny. Just a light coat of this, give it a good shake, otherwise you'll get a very rough back. Give it a good shake before you spray it on. Just give them cards a quick spray. Much easier to spray twice than to try and take off a heavy coat, believe me. That's all you need. You can get it on Amazon or in Halfords, any places like that. Rust-Oleum Clear Coat. And if you want to get a little bit more advanced, you can use Plastidip. Plastidip is absolutely brilliant stuff. I use it all of the time. I've created several effects using it. I'm a bit of a fan of rough and smooth, especially with stage work or parlour work where no one's touching the cards necessarily. You can make stuff vanish. With Plastidip, you only need to coat one side of the card. So if you spray this on one card, it will stick to any other card. You don't have to spray the entire deck. So half as much spray, plus that gives you a lot of freedom with having cards selected and vanished without having to rough an entire deck. So that's Plastidip, again, available on Amazon. Both are they're around £10 for a can, and you'll get a lot in a can. And that's it for the show for this week, apart from time for a quick competition, because I've now used this Gripstick. I've opened it, I've used it a little bit just to check it out. It is good. It is good. Personally, I prefer the Easy Rough, but you can win this. All you need to do is to put in the comments below what your favourite or indeed worst sticky thing is. So pop a comment below and I will do the draw next week. I promise to remember to do the draw next week, and you can win a Gripstick by Penguin Magic worth $18.99.
He shouldn't have jumped. The show's not that bad.
And that really is the end of the show. Please do grab some magic, go out there and have some fun with the best hobby in the world. Goodbye.